We're just 2 games away from determining who will meet in Super Bowl 60, with conference championship games coming up on Sunday, and for as hyped as I am for Rams Seahawks Part 3, I did talk about that matchup in my Mega Playoff preview video already, and they'll receive a lot of the attention, deservedly so. However, the most intriguing thing to watch on Championship Sunday may be what we see from the Broncos quarterback situation. Even if you may want to criticize some of the late officiating in overtime last week against the Bills, Denver earned the right for the rest of the AFC to come to them and now play for a trip to the big game. Yet after all the excitement from the huge win, Sean Payton delivered some sobering news shortly after at the podium when he announced that quarterback Bo Nix had fractured his ankle on a routine looking play in overtime and will be out for the remainder of the season. He seems to cherish the opportunity to show what backup Jarrett Stidham can do, but obviously they have a big challenge at hand with the equally 14-3 Patriots now coming to Mile High, having won 2 playoff games by double digits each, without even playing their best yet. I want to analyze what lies ahead for Denver, how they match up in different areas, how they can help their QB, and kind of construct the game plan they could/should follow in order to get out of the AFC. And we'll actually start by looking at the side of the ball that is largely full strength. The Broncos defense has been one of the best units in the league pretty much all season, even when missing reigning Defensive Player of the Year Patrick Surtain for 3 weeks, leading the league with a success rate allowed of just 37.8%, as well as easily the top mark with 68 sacks. Now, I maybe wouldn't quite put them up there in the same stratosphere as the Seahawks or the Texans, who just gave New England plenty of trouble this past Sunday, if not for their quarterback trying his best to give that game away, but you may be able to adopt some of the ways they did it. Denver was basically tied atop the NFL with a 44% man coverage rate overall throughout the regular season. Houston was right around the league average in that regard, but when you actually put it on the tape, you see plenty of match principles that almost function as man, and them just challenging receivers at the line of scrimmage. Kamara Lassiter in particular on Sunday was just all over those Patriots wideouts, big boying them from early in the routes to all the way down the field. The referees in that game really let those guys play out there, and I think forcing them to throw those flags early on is definitely the right approach, since that lack of guys who really scare you individually is one of the big advantages you may have over the Pats. Drake May is certainly capable of hitting these tight window throws, and he's been the best deep passer in the league this year, to where he can allow those guys to create that late separation by dropping balls into the bucket, but you're not going to surrender free access and allow your opponents to stay ahead of the chains. Riley Moss as the other outside corner has continued to be on the wrong side of the whistle, despite regularly being in good position, and seeing how he's going to be treated on this stage could be huge in determining the outcome of this game. Plus, of course, Kayshon Boutte just had that awesome one-handed touchdown grab on a go ball last week. Regardless, that approach is how you get to these obvious passing situations and really allow defensive coordinator Vance Joseph to throw these exotic looks at an MVP level quarterback and get him off his game. I released a video around Thanksgiving talking about 4 things I'm thankful for being able to watch around the NFL, and broke down how Vance uses different rush packages and the illusion of bringing pressures. As compared to years past, they actually only finished 12th in the league this year, basically right around the 30% blitz rate, in combination with what they do on the back end to hold opponents to the second lowest success in third downs and the lowest conversion rate in the red zone. Just as an example, here's one play back from week 4 against the Bengals, which speaks to how Joseph forces offenses to waste bodies in protection. Pre-snap here on a 3rd and 3, they have linebackers mucked up into either A gap. Single high look with the other safety down here kind of lurking on the edge of the box as well. But actually Denver will only bring 3, bail out the nickel in what basically becomes quarters over that trip side, allowing the corner to play a hard flat, while the guy on the opposite end of the field is playing deep and outside, since he has help inside as he flood those underneath areas with the 2 backers plus the D-tackle to the field dropping out, and both edges from those wider alignments almost get home instantly, well before the stagger concept has any chance of developing. Watch it again from the endzone angle, where Cincinnati's tackles certainly don't cover themselves in glory, with Nick Bonito and Jonathan Cooper turning the corner on them beautifully. But it's that threat in all 4 inside gaps, along with Zach Allen slanting inside to pull the guard with him, and how all 3 interior linemen, plus the back and the sniffer alignment, now basically are blocking Allen inside. As we freeze frame this, massive win for the DC here, and great job by both edge rushers. Well, we'll see if Josh McDaniels can put together more advantageous protection plans to mitigate that, but pretty clearly the one major advantage the Broncos have is their speed rushing off the edge. We just saw Buffalo try to chip Nick Bonita with a wide receiver this past weekend, and he's just too far up the field to where the tackle can't catch back up. Morgan Moses on the right side for New England is at the end of year 12 in the league, and rookie Will Campbell just got his ass kicked pretty badly by the deadly Houston duo of Will Anderson Jr. and Danielle Hunter. Those guys are atop the league right now as a tandem and feature a little bit more of a power element, but Denver is plenty capable in that area as well. That's where Stephon Diggs as the veteran receiver who can solve the puzzle quickly and see things the same way that May does to not give the rush enough time to get home will be a key figure. Of course, we can't forget the run game, which will be pivotal for both sides, but maybe even more so for the Patriots, who have found their most success on the ground since the start of December. They literally were the worst early down rushing team in the league outside of Las Vegas over the first half of the year, but since week 15 they've posted a 44.3% rushing success rate, which will rank 6th league-wide over the course of the whole season, and that includes playoff affairs against two top 10 defenses in the Chargers and Texans. Ramondre Stevenson has really become the hammer for them after early struggles with ball security, thanks to how balanced he runs and how he constantly spots if there's any lack of discipline in the run fit. And his presence has a cumulative effect late in games with all the body blows that he delivers, paired with the explosive potential of rookie Trevion Henderson, who also is quite the no-nonsense runner himself, with the top speed to erase angles by safeties. On the flip side, the Broncos barely finished behind Seattle for a top mark in that regard defensively, but they also just allowed a season-high 183 yards on the ground against Buffalo last Sunday. Now, some of that was Josh Allen scrambling, but James Cook's ability to contort his body, slicing through the line of scrimmage, cutting back zone runs, threatening the corner and pin and pull toss plays, and others definitely challenged Denver. Part of that was using some 5-1 penny fronts early on, along with dropping the safety down, which the Bills did a nice job of pulling that guy out of the box with motion at the snap or create a +1 to the front side. But they did certainly stiffen up in the fourth quarter, and they probably will benefit from having faced an offense that ran a lot of pro personnel with a fullback or multiple tight ends on the field, since that's how the Pats want to attack on the ground, and on paper, they've been very effective defending a run from those heavier groupings. What's most encouraging to me about how Denver matches up on that side of the ball is that they actually didn't need to rely on turnovers for most of the year, as only 4 other teams actually had fewer takeaways altogether, but then they did show the capability to jar the ball loose from runners and come up with passes that were up for grabs when they just turned the Bills over 5 times. But now let's switch over to the meat of the episode with the Broncos offense. As the overarching point here, Denver's offense has shown some volatility throughout the season on a weekly and even drive-by-drive basis, in part connected to the quarterback position with Bo Nix having certain warts, but they did have plenty of bright moments as well, and what really stood out again in the divisional round when Bo played one of his best games of the season was Sean Payton's excellent play sequencing, along with having an understanding of which looks they'll be facing on certain downs and distances and how to attack those. Let's start with the run game, where they might get a shot in the arm with the potential return of J.K. Dobbins off injured reserve. For now, rookie R.J. Harvey remains the RB1 for this team. He provides big time explosive ability, which they tap into on toss plays and providing space for him once he clears the second level by spreading out the formation, along with an RPO or screen alert attached to those a lot of times. But he also isn't the most mature decision maker or shows the same level of vision as they had with Dobbins, which has led to the ground game being less consistently efficient. In part, that's why opposing defenses started blitzing Denver more on early downs to force him to bounce or take him down as he stops his feet in the backfield, which New England does deploy at a decent rate as well, along with stunts, and then Robert Spillane brings the appropriate level of patience behind it, but also understanding when to shoot the gap and create run stuffs. According to FTN Fantasy, the Patriots were the only defense in the league this season to allow under 4 yards per carry on man blocking concepts, but on a very limited sample size, they did allow an NFL high 8.5 yards per carry on counter plays, and overall they stacked the box at one of the 5 highest percentages of runs they faced at nearly 55%, meaning having a +1 in the box. Spreading those guys out and putting defenders in conflict will be key. Here's one example of that from week 16 against the Jaguars, where the Broncos initially come out in this condensed 2x2 set, but motion Marvin Mims across into a tight bunch to the left with a tight end offset that way. They're going to be running a simple inside zone, but attached to it is either an option for the quarterback to keep it most likely, or potentially just eye candy, as the tight end sifts across the formation and theoretically would become the lead blocker for the quarterback in case he kept the ball. Harvey can hit the line of scrimmage near full throttle, then spins off contact at the 3rd level and outraces the defense to a left pylon for a touchdown. Watch it from the end zone angle to see what's actually happening. In general, the defense is fairly condensed pre-snap, as the corner is brought inside by the formation, with this backside safety dropping down and bump the two linebackers over to the strong side. However, that sifting tight end pulls the +1 out of the run fit, and now look at the indecision by Mike linebacker Devin Lloyd, basically not moving off the spot as he tries to decipher this action until the backside tackle can climb up to him. The D-end stays home, and Harry can cut it back. Great balance and individual talent to bounce off those two whoopee tackles and finish for 6 here. And what I will add at this point, both the Broncos' recent uptick in usage of 12 personnel, meaning 2 tight ends on the field on offense, and where the Patriots' defense has been most vulnerable defending opponents on the ground and sides, so I definitely believe that's something they want to lean into more in this matchup. In terms of the pass game, New England is pretty varied in the coverage menu, with true cover 0 and cover 6 rarely ever being called, while cover 2 they've used at the top 6 rates in the league. Only the Rams have stunted their D-line at a higher rate at 25%. Generally, they've been below average in blitz rate, but when they do bring extra bodies, oftentimes it's some funky stuff with 6+ rushers, and they do it a lot on first downs in order to push opponents behind the chains. They really came after the Chargers because they understood that those guys had no answers in protection and made life for Justin Herbert hell throughout most of that wildcard round matchup. Now, Denver's a lot more well versed in blocking up these types of looks in defined dropback settings, and they are way more equipped to handle the duo of Milton Williams and Christian Barmore on the interior, as they were the best pass protecting O-line in the league. Starting center Alex Forsyth hurt his ankle on Sunday, so his status and what it could mean from a communication perspective is one thing to keep an eye on. However, as much as I don't want to eliminate the possibility altogether, I just don't believe you're going to really go after Christian Gonzalez, who typically will be lined up on the backside, or Cortland Sutton, who's made plenty of money on these back shoulder fades throughout his career, but this is an all-pro level corner who doesn't panic when he does get caught with his back to the football. Carlton Davis, on the other hand, was penalized more than any other defensive back in the league during the regular season at 13 times, not including when he was playing flat-footed against and grabbed Christian Kirk for a DPI call on Sunday. He's the guy to go after as that field side corner who doesn't look nearly as comfortable having to play with a cushion by running off the safety with something up the seam or post to basically isolate him. And as we look at how things ended in overtime against the Bills for Denver, they have the propensity to take that approach. Sean Payton certainly understands how to create advantages and find success against man coverage, even if the pure receiving talent for the Broncos doesn't jump out to you. Here are a couple of examples. This first one is from week 16 against the Jaguars once more on a 3rd and 2, where they don't really bump out with the motion by Harvey in the backfield, but again it's Lloyd threatening as if he splits in the B gap. But unless this corner feathers off and the linebacker drops into that hook window, this slant flat combination into the boundary will defeat them. The Jags are in cover 1 with the single high safety deep. Sutton's gonna do a nice job of taking up that space and using his body as a shield to create that free access to the flats, and Harvey easily converts with a 16-yard catch and run. And second, actually a drop touch from a little Jordan Humphrey this past weekend against the Bills, where this time them trips to the right against what looks like man free once again, with the deep safety shaded towards the boundary, who they're basically just trying to run off. So now we're attacking 3 over 3, as they have the tight end stemming inside, and actually the back also in an advantageous position, as he's gonna break inside on what looks like an option route, with the linebacker matched up over him having to shuffle outside as he pushes strong initially. But the main piece to this is another rub for number 2 Humphrey, slightly delaying his release on the slot fade, while the flanker shoots inside to put the nickel on this longer track before breaking to the post. As you can see, great timing of not actually running into the defender, but making it really hard for him to stay attached. Great throw also from Bo into the bucket, but Lil Jordan has it go right through his hands. I do believe that using the size of guys like him, Sutton, or even Evan Ingram as these power slots versus Marcus Jones at 5'8", who just had a monster game thanks to his ability to attack forward rather than playing with his back to the football, is something to incorporate in the game plan. And I will also note here that New England has been by far the most vulnerable, defending passes from 21 personnel, allowing 0.37 EPA per play on those. So putting those bigger bodies on the field and hunting for these big chunks of play action could reap major benefits if timed correctly. But let's now get to the new man under center, Which right off the bat, Jarrett Stidham was the first quarterback Sean Payton brought over to Denver when he became the head coach in 2023, as he was somewhat forced to adopt Russell Wilson and clearly was ready to get rid of very early on. And the organization made sure to extend the guy he calls Stiddy last offseason to a 2-year $12 million deal. They clearly believe he's very capable of performing at a higher level as he steps in here, and of course I went back to watch all of his dropbacks when starting the final 2 weeks of 2023, after which I felt pretty good about him myself. He had 2 more starts at the end of the previous season, after Josh McDaniels had traded for him as the Raiders coach, by the way, after he had left as his OC with the Patriots back at the time. I regularly saw Stidham hang in the pocket, allow receivers to wrap around or clear zone defenders, and confidently fire passes into those closing windows. He'd quickly get to his checkdowns if the defense surrendered excess space underneath, but also showed the arm talent to defeat type coverage, even when he can't fully step into throws. Here's my favorite play personally from those 2 games at the end of the 2023 season. It's 4th and 10, down by a couple of touchdowns late against Las Vegas. You're most likely not winning this game, but he does an outstanding job here of extending that drive. Simple 3-by-1 with the tight end offset to the right and the back flank the other way. Those 2 guys will chip both edges before advancing to the flats, while those 3 wide receivers are basically just curling up at around 15 to 17 yards. You'll see the boundary corner jump down late here to disrupt the X-receiver with a jam at the line. As the Raiders actually are in a traditional cover 2 look, which is pretty rare nowadays. Must release inside for that guy. He's gonna sit down in this window between the 3 defenders. And let's look at when Stidham releases this ball as pressure is coming in on him. Pass is gonna be right on the money as Brandon Johnson gets his eyes around, and they stay alive. Watch it one more time from the quarterback's perspective. Vegas is running a twist inside, where this tilted 5 technique comes free and he just destroys Jarrett, but that guy stares down the barrel of the gun and rips this throw regardless. Love it, and that's what it's gonna take if the Pats try to heat him up on Sunday. At the same time, I will note here that he did have a couple of moments where he either blindly put the ball up for grabs or slightly underthrew his guys in shot plays when the Broncos went heavy play action from these bigger personnel sets. So as I mentioned earlier, it may be a path to explosives that you want to tap into a couple of times if the Patriots aggressively come downhill against the run, but there's certainly risks connected to those. Finding the right balance and understanding when it's time to go for it will be pivotal, and Sean Payton is someone who's been as good at that as just about any coach I've ever witnessed. Now, the 2 biggest differences for Stidham compared to Bo Nix: number 1, sack avoidance, where Bo has some bad moments of running himself into pressure occasionally if defenses fool him, but he can also get out of muddy pockets and avoid negative plays for some impressive moments. Jarrett's a solid athlete, but he's not nearly as slippery or has that sudden burst to get away from nearby rushers, which is why his career pressure to sack conversion rate is nearly twice as high as Bo's, right around 20%. And number 2, clutch performance, as again, Bo is or wasn't the perfect quarterback by any means, but just like I said in my full playoff preview as well, he has consistently found a way to elevate his level of play in the 4th quarter and when his teams needed him most, orchestrating an NFL high 8 game winning drives if you include this past game. Stidham doesn't have one of those across his 4 starts, with only 1 win among those in general, and he hasn't even thrown a pass in the regular season in 2 years. So it'll be very interesting to see how he responds if he does get such a chance late on Sunday. Aside from everything we discussed today, the Broncos have a monumental task at hand to finish off this great season, where they came through late in games as much as any other team in the league, earned the number 1 seed, and now will try to finish off with a Lombardi trophy. I think Stidham and company are very much alive here, but this is gonna be their biggest challenge yet, and I can't wait to see if Sean Payton pulls out a couple of trick plays out of his bag. Can Vance Joseph fool Drake May once or twice here? What's the answer by McRabel and company? It's gonna be a battle that I believe will go down to the wire. But that's gonna do it for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button for me real quick, and maybe also the bell if you haven't done so yet, to know when I upload anything on here. Let me know what you believe. Can Jarrett Stidham pull this off and send the Broncos back to the Super Bowl? And who do you have coming out of the NFC? Of course, as soon as those games have wrapped up, I will get back into the lab and start from a preview of the big game, how both sides of the ball match up against each other, X Factors, Super Bowl MVP prediction, the whole shebang, and it's gonna be a monster. My plan is to get that out by next weekend, so we have about a week to really dive in and have all the information the 2 teams squaring off in Santa Clara. In the meantime, you can check out a couple of other videos I've referenced today. I posted my all-rookie team last week over at hello@footballtalk.com, where you can find all of my content, by the way, and feel free to also follow me on social media. Links are down below in the video description. So until then, see you later. Peace!